so you and I met many moons ago when you were buying out Via,
as it was known,
which is now Caspian Filter Technology.
As it was known, yeah.
So I know Via, Caspian, Tracy.
Yeah.
You also have White and Ward, which is categorized as
it's
a software company.
Well, it's actually a third-party logistics company, but that's what it's listed as. But we market it as a 360-degree logistics company. So we cover all logistics and all the software behind that.
Gotcha. So I know that, Trace. But this is PR, Tracy.
Yeah, this is...
PR and mentorship.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think what I would classify this as is that this is the Tracy that has been waiting to be the Tracy that she wants to be in business, which is kind of more mentoring and collaboration and sharing of ideas and teaching and learning and, whatever people are open for, which has been in the back of my head for a long time, but there's been several catalysts that have created that, which are? Well, I've been told my whole life, working life, engaging with friends or just people I meet along the way when I start to have conversation, and I've been told many, many times, oh, you should go on stage, or oh, you should write a book, or, and I've been like, and it's not been something it's not been the part of the universe I've listened to, shall we say, at the time. It's been like, yeah, sure, right, whatever. But more recently, I took myself off on a bit of a retreat with other CEO females, and it was clearly just the right time, which was that I was in that environment, and it was a very intimate environment, and I was told by several people the same thing that I've heard a million times, right? And the universe tries to tell you things in many ways, doesn't it? And I kind of just sat there and went, do you know what? It's about time I started listening to what people say to me I should do. So I kind of went, okay, so as much as the businesses will always be important to me, and the teams and supporting them and us creating success, that's not going to change. I'm creating time to be able to go, okay, if I've got something to pay forward that people are interested in, that somehow, they want to hear and it helps them, as well as at the same time, because it is so cathartic. I mean, literally, it's helping me. Everyone's doing me a favor being in that environment, and I'm still growing in that environment. And I don't know if that's what I think is different, because there are so, I don't know, you tell me, you know what the world's like. But you can go into certain environments where people, they're doing it for, there's they're not necessarily coming from an authentic place, let's say, when they're doing that. And yeah, I kind of want to just go, do you know what? Yeah, I work hard. I come from a lot of, I've got a lot of information in lots of different ways that could help somebody, and it's kind of genuine, So yeah, I was just like, right, yeah, I'm gonna roll with this and see what happens.
So you and I have had a couple of conversations, many conversations.
I was going to say, how many?
Which I'm straying away from business is where I've enjoyed our conversations the most.
Right, yeah.
Because there's a lot of almost studied philosophy. And yet I don't know that you've studied philosophy.
Right.
So where does that come from? Where does that interest come from? What made you seek out so many different?
Gosh, I love that question. Thank you. So I say thank you because I really appreciate when I love being asked questions, and I really adore it when somebody kind of really sort of takes that apart and asks the real question. I'm like, thank you, because it's, it means a lot to me. Okay, so my personality I didn't realize this immediately in my life, in the 51 years I've been on this planet, that actually my kind of approach is a little different, that I've always wanted to learn. So I'll give you an example of the first time that I can remember wanting to always learn and grow and understand was I was about 7 years old, and my background's not the coolest background. I don't come from a great stock, and yet I was so interested in Charles Dickens. I loved the books, but I didn't understand a fucking word of them, not one. And so, off my own, at 7 years old, with no guidance or mentorship from anyone else, I was like, I really want to read Great Expectations. And I was reading it, but I didn't understand it. So I then took it upon myself to go get a thesaurus. So for every word that I didn't understand, I would stop and I would look it up in the thesaurus and then understand the word. So I would say that was probably where it kind of started. And in the sense of that, I kind of was just born this way. You know, it wasn't environment that created me. It was absolutely just my personality that created me. But it took me a long time to recognize that. You go through life, right? Whichever way that is, and it's different for everybody. And I went through my life, and I kind of was just going through different parts of the life that I chose, I created. And then as time went on, I just kind of started to recognize a pattern that I was just into that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, I'm much older, and I recognize that I've read about every religion that exists. Mm-hmm. I've read all the different genres of religion, and I can't sit here and remember it all by any stretch of the means. There's no way that I don't have a capacity for that at all. I have to write everything down because I don't keep capacity for everything. But I've read about everything, and for example, being that I've read about all religions, and I've read, the books I read fictionally are just the cross-section of genre that I've read, or music, even down to listening to music and collected music from every era, and introduced my children to that. Every child, every one of the 4 kids that I've had have been given a hard drive of the several thousand songs that go from the 1930s up to whatever point that we gave them the hard drive, and gone, listen to every genre of music because it's so important. And yeah, I just naturally was somebody who was like, give me the information and then want to sort of go, sort of make good decisions with lots of information rather than pigeonhole yourself. And that wasn't calculated at all. It just is exactly who I am.
It's a blessing, for sure.
Right? Mm. I mean, I'm so appreciative of that every day, that regardless of the background, right, that I'm someone who is that. I'm like, wow, I'm just, and that's why I'm so positive in life. That's why I'm so energetic. That's why I'm so like, I'm not like, oh my God, I'm running out of time. It's like, yeah, but I really understand time. Mm-hmm. So I'm really philosophical and stoic in one sense, and I can be calm and very chilled and open and paced in an environment. But also I'll go, time is so precious. So, so precious.
How are you finding business?
Well, my gut reaction is to say, I love it, because I do. I mean, I do. I've not had the easiest time the past couple of years. However, the reason I say I love it is because I've come out of that, and I've grown. I'm absolutely a better person every day. I mean, I'm one of these people that have loads of mantras, right? And one of mine is be better today than I am yesterday, and be better tomorrow than I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And business lets me do that every day. I don't have to practice that mantra. It just happens because you have no choice to be better every day. I don't think in business. You're thrown a curveball, and my kind of business is really fast paced, right? And I also have 2 companies, and they're 2 very, very opposing companies, right? So I started with one as a water filtration retail company that I've grown into now a facilities management company. And then the other one is a logistics company that does software. I mean, you couldn't really get that far removed, right? So, and I don't know about yourself and people that you will talk to, but, I've come across people who will say quite regularly, they need to concentrate on one element, and they want to niche, and when it becomes that it's generalist and there's lots of different elements to manage every day, that becomes really complex and really hard work. But White and Ward would not exist if it wasn't for opportunity. I was offered an opportunity and I said yes. Mm-hmm. And now I own a successful company off the back of just saying yes. And that wasn't the first, I've said yes my whole life. I'm a yes, but I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll have a go at that. Can you help with me? Yeah, sure. If I didn't know it, I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. And it was the same thing with White and Ward. It was literally off the back of owning my other company and talking to my freight company and saying, well, I've moved to a new location and it's kind of big. I've got some spare space. So I'm thinking about just, hiring out some storage at some point. And they'd just come to see me and give me donuts and a coffee to say thank you for being a great customer. And we just had this conversation without there was no plan in it. And I mentioned that, that statement. And 3 weeks later, the manager of the branch, who'd just come to see me, rang me and went, I've got a customer who could do with a bit of space. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, send it my way. Send that container my way. And then the customer rang me and said, okay, so thanks for helping us with that. We've got a bit of a problem. And they explained the problem to me. And it was a little complex. And I was like, and the work we needed to do for that problem was very based around doing logistics. And at this point, we're a water filtration company. But I have a warehouse team, so we could help them. So they came to me with this problem and said, we've got this problem, can you help? And I was like, yeah, send it our way. And we fixed a problem for them without, and it not be a company at all at this point. I'm still, I'm not even invoicing this as a company. It doesn't exist yet, White and Ward. And they sent us the problem that needed to be solved, and we solved that problem for them really quickly, really concisely, and without mayhem, just calmly went, yeah, it's fine. And then they went, can we come and meet you? And that's how White and Ward literally started. It was off the back of that conversation. So I don't forget that. And there's been other opportunities in my life previous to that have allowed me to grow and have allowed me to create success and have allowed me to move forward in my life and have created me to better myself. And you sort of combine all of that, and I just go, I'm an opportunist, I'm a generalist, I will never niche, I will say yes to everything. I'll feel everyone's pain, I will fix people's pain, and no problem, I'm a problem solver. I have this mantra, I say to everyone, everything's fixable. But everything is fixable. And people who go, I'm like, right, we've got you.
So do you think you have the systems in place as far as understanding the fundamentals of business to be able to apply yourself to any business?
Yes, absolutely. Because I think sometimes people think that they need to spend a lot of time on those fundamentals before they start, rather than building the fundamentals as they go. Because you know what? You can plan for everything and it's still going to change. Really is. And it's just being okay with that. And that is about reframing of the mind. This is now about personal development, I think, is that you are either someone who can reframe a situation for a positive, no matter what, but planning for DEFCON 10. I mean, I talk about it at work every day. I'm like, well, we're at DEFCON 8 today. And we get to Wednesday and I go, wow, look what we've learned this week, you know, and I'm so lucky that I've also got a team of people who resonate with that, you know, that it works for them, or not only does it work for them, that it works for me, that they can walk in my office and in the morning and be like, hey, good morning, what's happening today? And I'm just, you know.
How hard is it to find that synergy with the crew?
For me, that's a really good question, because where I am geographically located, it could be classed as hard, right, to find those people, because I'm obviously more rurally based. I'm not in a major city, so we don't necessarily have the experience. But I have this mantra: I can teach anybody any skill, can't teach anyone an attitude. And if somebody brings the right attitude, then whatever skill we'll teach, and, you know, spend time on that. And so it's hard on one sense for the geographical location to find certain attitudes, and sometimes experience is key. But I don't care how much experience someone has. If they have the wrong attitude, I'm not interested in that experience. I'm like, I'm sorry, you know, attitude is everything. But I find that, so I have an interview style, or a recruitment style, or, you know, a growth style that's kind of different. You know, we are a forward-facing, very highly corporate companies, and we can manage the corporate space beautifully. And we're so slick. I'm just so excited by that. I'm proud of that every day, of how slick we are. Yet internally, we drop all of that. There's just no barrier there that's corporate. So anybody can walk in my office as the owner, founder, CEO, MD, whatever you want to call me, of my companies, and go, I'm fucked today, Trace. And I will literally go, take a seat. What do you need? Do you need a chat? What do you need? Just decompress. Yeah, I don't need to talk to you. And I know that is valuable, because I know that just doesn't really exist. So my interview style is really different for that. So I'm open, myself, vulnerable, talk about our problems, you know, talk about our weaknesses, but not in a way of, well, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit, in a way of, okay, so guess what? This doesn't really work, but I love it, because I hate perfection. Anyone who comes to me with this perfect persona, I'm just like, I mean, you know what I want to say right now, but, you know, I'm just like, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist. And anyone who assumes that it does is wrong. No, I mean, I shouldn't say that, but in my world, perfection doesn't exist for me, in my professional opinion, in my experienced opinion, and just in my opinion. Perfection is useless to everyone. It just causes pain, it causes stress, it causes barriers, it causes negativity, and it causes self-deprivation all the time, right? Because we're trying to aspire to something that just isn't real. So, yeah, I talk about our imperfections, I talk about our problems. I think it then represents me as somebody who really knows my businesses, who doesn't sit in la-la land going, oh, yeah, we're great. And there's always things to fix. And I think people resonate with that. And I think one of the first times I recognized that is when I worked for quite a corporate company, and I was in an IP meeting with the lawyers, and I sat there, and, you know, this is your area now, but for me, IP law okay, the terminology in the room, it just doesn't make any sense, right? For my brain at all. And I can sit there and I'm listening to 4 or 5 people sort of talking, and I'm like, I've got a fucking clue what they're saying. And I've got 2 choices, right? I can either sit there and stay unknowledgeable about that situation, or I can be myself, which is, I'm sorry, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Would you mind explaining that in a manner that actually makes sense to me? And they all kind of looked at me, and I was working with an MD at the time who nearly cried at the fact that I showed that. He was like, he was embarrassed by me. And I kind of looked at that and went, okay, he's embarrassed. And the rest of the room was a little shocked. However, they kind of explained it. And, you know, there's so many things out of that conversation, right, that I could take. I can sit here and go, the MD thought I was, how dare I show that kind of vulnerability? And the IP lawyers I was talking to can sit there and go, that's a really strange question. We're not used to that. I could sit there and go, well, as a woman, they think I'm a bit dumb, and, you know, and clearly I'm not well versed or well practiced. And I don't care any about that, because it's not true. I'm very bright. I'm very capable, highly intelligent, incredibly well read. But I don't really give a shit if somebody thinks that by anything I say, I don't know, or that's a really good question. My curiosity for life, if that's seen as dumb, okay. I don't really care.
Well, I mean, so interestingly, when you start as a lawyer, you're put into these situations quite early on, and there's a lot of trying to save face and all this, that, and the other,
Right.
where you end up being either shut down or humiliated into silence.
Yes.
And I
can relate to that.
It's happened at the beginning of the journey. It happened quite a few times, and I just remember saying to myself, "It's too important to be quiet," and so I would volunteer being the stumble bum.
Yes.
And I
A
remember
stumble bum. I love that. I'm going to keep that.
I remember being in court, and you know, I don't know what I was doing there. I don't know why my training principal thought it was a good idea to put me in this position.
What were you representing at that point? Can you remember?
It was...
Set the scene for me. I've got another scene, so...
So the scene was... it was a divorce.
Okay. Ooh, family law.
Yeah.
Complex.
Yeah. It was a divorce, and the question was, wife was still in the property, wasn't named on the property. And she hadn't made any mortgage payments. She'd phoned up, they refused to talk to the mortgage company.
Yeah, she's not on the mortgage, so they won't talk to her, so she can't.
So now
pay.
they're doing repossession. And an order had been given for the repossession, and now there was another hearing just to finalise that order. So then I'm in the then I stumble my way into court, and I'm just there, and I know, and I'd read as much as I could read, and I really didn't understand what really was going on. It just didn't make sense. That it was just so unjust.
How old were you at this point? How long had you been practicing?
I was still a trainee.
Okay, so this
10
is...
minutes, maybe 6 months. I've been practicing for 6 months.
And they throw you into family law.
Yeah. And
good training.
The person on the other side was a barrister for a bank.
Okay.
And the first thing they did, they stood up and they said, well, so I was trying to, just be my normal self outside. So I was speaking to the barrister. I was like, mate, should we have a normal conversation? They were like, no, we'll just present it in there. Perfectly friendly and all the rest of it. And I was like, this is going to be fine. It's going to be absolutely fine. And then the person stood up and said, Mr. Zier, or whoever the client's name is, doesn't have locus standi. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. I was like, what did she just say to the judge? And then the judge was like, actually, no, the barrister's right. You don't have standing to make this claim because you're not on the mortgage. You're not of this. And also, a judgment's already been made. This is about execution of the judgment. And I was like, well, that can't be right, Judge. It doesn't make sense. Like, why are we here? And and none of this is. I'm not speaking to him in a legal way. I'm
No.
not speaking to him in any. I'm like, how does that make sense? It can't be right. And then the judge was like, no, the legislation says this, and this. And I'd read the legislation 20 times.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was like, I know the legislation says that, Judge, but why are we here? Why am I even in this courtroom? Why have you invited us here? You must have some power, right? Could you not, is it possible that you could stay the execution of this judgment? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, then I must have something I'm able to say. And if there's something I'm able to say, I must have standing. Right? And the judge was like, hey, this guy's got a point. He doesn't speak right, but he's got a point.
Yeah.
Right? And it was that kind of thing. And we won. We won the case.
Oh, amazing.
And here's the interesting thing. I went back to my training principal and he said, you shouldn't have won that. He had sent me to my own demise.
Yeah.
Because he actually thought that's a good way to cut your teeth. On a case, you're clearly going to lose. And I came back and do you know what? I sat in the car and I called up my best mate. And I was like, dude, I've just saved somebody their house. Right? But I mean, there was some strategy beforehand. So I had spoken to her beforehand and I said, look, you're out this many payments. Make these payments because you have been living there. Make this many payments anyway. Right? So then the whole thing of she's able to pay, she's willing to pay, she's shown willingness and has made payments and she's able to make payments going forward. What are we doing here? Right? That all came into it after he said, you've got a point, what do you want? But yeah, I was really happy with that.
Yeah. No, but that, I mean, first off, what an awesome story. That is so cool. You've never told me something like that. I'm so proud of you. Oh my God, that's so cool.
I've only been to court 4 or 5 times.
Okay, because obviously you're more of a,
I'm more of a chilled out human, right? It's not. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I get
when
it.
somebody's standing behind you saying "help me," and you're like, oh, "Okay, now shall I not ever sleep then?" Because how am I going to know everything there is to know in the world? I'm never going to. So I'll never sleep. How's that sound? And it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's nice to have people fight your battles for you.
Yeah.
And I've got some real heavy hitters that can do that. So I'm like, okay, I'm at peace. I can go back to bed now.
Amazing.
So I can just do the creative.
I need to learn something there.
Well, so that's an interesting question. Like, how have you said I'm finding time to do this third business now, the PR and the mentorship.
Yes.
How are you creating that? Because you're young in the business world, right? What is it, 5, 6 years?
Less than that. So, although, I'm not in an early stage of life, right? I'm 51. But the first time I owned a business was 4 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, in fairness, you ran 3 of them.
Literally, but I've run other people's companies for forever, and I've worked at high level forever and ever. And I've looked after multi-million-pound budgets and hundreds of staff forever.
So here's a question. You ran Vailleur as it was then.
Yeah.
Pretty much, we can say. You pretty much ran it.
I
You
did,
were the MD at the time. How different is being the MD and the owner? I don't mean internally. I mean like on the day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
For you.
So none, but that goes to the internal, because my response to that was going to be, I've never ran anybody else's company other than like it's my own.
Okay, interesting.
That's what I look for when I'm bringing people in, is there's an element of their personality that they care, that they're not just there to, they want more than, there's a space for everybody that need, people work because they have to.
Uh-huh.
And I respect that. I come from something that doesn't ever forget, what it's like to really need something. And every day I practice that. And that's part of my philosophy, is understanding that no matter how my success is that I don't forget where I come from, not because of anything other than to create success, and it's hard work, but that people suffer every day, and they do, and their suffering is in relation to them, and I want to stay human and connected to that. It's so important to me. So I don't walk around in my la la land bubble of privilege going, this is what the world is like, I go, I'm very privileged. I worked so hard to get my privilege, but I don't forget where I came from. So that means that I don't forget what other people need. And what they need is my point being is that it's okay for people to do a job and just cross the T's and dot the I's and go home. It's totally okay for that. It's not that, and I respect that. And there is a total need in my businesses for people who would just come in, do the job, and go home. The people who really care, I'm the one who's going, nothing you're going to do today is going to make an impact. So put that down and we'll deal with it tomorrow. And they sit there and look at me and go, okay, thank you. And it confuses them because I'm like, well, you know, don't take that home with you. Leave that here. Park it. We'll deal with it tomorrow. Or if it's a Friday, park it. We'll deal with it next week. But for me, I've always cared for everybody's businesses that I've worked for like it was my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a simple transition for me. And so although there have been worries for owning my own business, it's only because that last element of responsibility, and I am so accountable for everything. I'm a person who literally takes responsibility for, even if it's not my fault, I'll go, okay, we need to be better, right? And I have to stop, you know, and I have to counsel myself on that and go, you're doing fine, you know. But on that basis, I have to, I understand the fact that as much as I always cared when it was someone else's business, that level is still there. I look at my team or my teams and go, you know, I've got to make sure I take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Where does that that work ethic come from in you? Because I'll tell you why I ask. Because so I know where it came from in me.
Okay, but why do you start?
I also don't know whether it's fair. Right, when looking at it from a balance, because I kind of like the millennial thing. You know, everything in moderation. But I like the well, what can you do for me? I understand I'm going to turn up every single day and work like this is my business. I gotcha. But where's the quid pro quo? You cut me in half, you know, you can see your business there. But if I cut your business in half, am I there?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Where's the quid pro quo?
Yeah.
And I get that. And so when you see these, you know, these younger people coming up with this entrepreneurial kind of mindset, and they're like, yeah, I'm good for the 15-hour day.
What are you going to get me back?
Should we talk about the future?
Yes.
Like, what does my future look like?
That's
What's
right.
the master plan like?
Yeah.
Where's ownership fit into this story?
Yeah.
And I like the fact that that's happening because
I think it's teaching us, people like us with that work ethic. You know, I love it because I'm sat there and I'm like, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, there is also the, you know, doing it because it's your character, because that's the only way to do a thing is to do it beautifully. That has its own, that's its own quality, right? And I like that. But then that in a place where it's not recognized, you're like, well, that's kind of bullying, right? It's that you're just taking that person I'm not that I was a disruptor, but I used to, when I was employed, I would sit there and watch these people just working away. And then, because I was just curious, so I would sit with them and say, you got the skills, you've got the character, you've got the energy. Why are you here? What are you doing here? And they were like, oh no. And you know that if you cut me in half, you see that company name. And I'm like, but if you cut the company in half, and they were like,
will they see you?
Yeah.
I know you're absolutely right to do that, but I come at that from a different place, where in the sense of I agree with that statement, and is why my teams are so important to me. Because at the end of the day, I want to break that belief system that, you know, well, you're the boss, you don't really give a shit about us. No, I can't do this without you, and I do care. You know, I'm not their mother, I'm not their wife, I'm not their sister, but I am somebody who I don't matter to them. I shouldn't matter to them. I'm okay with them thinking, well, I'm just a boss and what does she care? But I'm not that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. I love that. You know, that's just my personal standard.
So where does that work?
Well, I was going to ask you the same question. I was going to say, so you want me to go first? Because I'm going to say, or do you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay, right. So where does that work ethic come from? It's quite simple for me, which is that I've had to be self-sufficient from a very early age. So I had no choice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I had to take care of me. Simple as that.